Good afternoon, everyone. In behalf of my group mates, Team Techmazings, I am Kimberly Sincaflores.
I am Elisa Mariapi. We are
Our
today's
today's
presenter
presenter
to
to discuss
discuss
about the
about modern
modern
age.
age.
Once
Once
again,
again, good
good afternoon.
afternoon. Modern history saw extreme changes in the way people live, including industrialization. There was a significant development in the field of science, politics, warfare, and technology. This period was the age of discovery and globalization. When we say modern age, it is the period in history which began at the beginning of the Renaissance up to the present. The early part of the modern age is characterized by the age of discovery in science, mathematics, and philosophy, often called as the age of reason or just simply enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment was a philosophical movement that dominated the world of ideas in Europe in the 18th century. The Enlightenment included a range of ideas centered on the value of human happiness, the pursuit of knowledge obtained by means of reason, and the evidence of the senses and ideals such as liberty, progress, toleration, paternity, constitutional government, and separation of church and state. These intellectual movements spanned from 17th and 18th, highlighted by Newton's understanding of gravity. Moving on towards the 18th century, complex machines dominated the agricultural and economic society, giving birth to the Industrial Revolution. It is also the time when colonization and global trade bloomed. There were two distinct lines of Enlightenment thought: the radical Enlightenment advocating democracy, individual liberty, freedom of expression, and eradication of religious authority. A second, more moderate variety sought accommodation between reform and traditional systems of power and faith. While the Enlightenment cannot be pigeonholed into a specific doctrine or set of dogmas, science came to play a leading role in Enlightenment discourse and thought. The Enlightenment brought political modernization to the West in terms of focusing on democratic values and institutions and the creation of modern, liberal democracies. And the Enlightenment thinkers sought to curtail the political power of organized religion and thereby prevent another age of intolerant religious war. The radical Enlightenment promoted the concept of separating church and states.
The latter part of the modern age is represented by the rise of capitalism and communism, the two world wars, the atomic age, the space age, and the information age. World War I, also called First World War or Great War, an international conflict that in 1914. 18 embroiled most of the nations of Europe, along with Russia, the United States, the Middle East, and the other regions. The war pit the Central Powers, mainly Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Turkey, against the Allies, mainly France, Great Britain, Russia, Italy, Japan, and from 1917, the United States. It ended with the defeat of the Central Powers. The war was virtually unprecedented in the slaughter, carnage, and destruction it caused. World War II, or the Second World War, was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. It involved the vast majority of the world's countries, including of all the great powers, forming two opposing military alliances, the Allies and the Axis powers. As World War II ended, a new age began, the Atomic Age. The first atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, Japan on July 6, 1945, ended World War II and created a new, more nervous age. Very quickly, the Soviet Union also developed atomic bombs. Countries that had been allies against Nazis were now enemies. Each pledged to outdo the other in the battle for political influences around the world. Then both sides developed hydrogen bomb, much more powerful, than the original atomic bomb designs. In the era that followed, both world superpowers threatened to use weapons of tremendous destruction as they compete with one another to achieve supremacy of their own political and economic systems. This was a time of tremendous change in the social and political landscape, and Nebraska played a unique role. 60 years ago, the space age began. On October 4, 1957, the Soviet Union opened the space age with the launch of Sputnik. What is Sputnik? It is the world's first artificial satellite. Launched as part of the International Geophysical Year, Sputnik weighs 84 kilograms and orbits the Earth every 90 minutes, sending out a signal that could be heard by amateur radio operators around the world. Sputnik launch caught the United States by surprise and led to the creation of NASA. The space race was inaugurated between the two countries as each superpower sought to achieve superiority in space. The competition led to rapid development of space capabilities by both countries, first both putting animals and then humans in space and sending automatic probes to the moon and planets. The information age is the idea that access and control of the information is the defining characteristic of this current era in human civilization. The information age, also called the computer age, digital age, and the new media age, is coupled tightly with the advent of personal computers, but many computer historians trace its beginning to the work of the American mathematician Claude E. Shannon. At age 32 and as a researcher at Bell Laboratories, Shannon published a landmark paper proposing that information can be quantitatively encoded as a series of ones and zeros. Known as the father of information theory, Shannon showed how all information media, from telephone signals to radio waves to television, could be transmitted without error using this single framework. As a summary, information age saw its beginning in the 1970s, where there a shift from traditional industry to information technology-based economy. The information age is the idea that access and control of information is a defining characteristic of this current era in human civilization.
However, there were also a lot of major events that happened in the modern age, which begins on 18th century to 20th century, such as the Industrial Revolution on 18th to 19th century, the Napoleonic era on 1799 to 1815, the Victorian era in United Kingdom on 1837 to 1901, the Edwardian period in United Kingdom on 1901 to 1910, the Meiji era in Japan on 1868 to 1912, the World War I on 1914 to 1918, the interwar period on 1918 to 1939, the World War II on 1939 to 1945, the Cold War in Soviet Union and United States on 1945 to 1989, the post-communist period in Russia after 1991, and the 9/11 on September 2001 began the War on Terror. Again, this is Kimberly.
And this is Alisa. We
We
hope
hope
you
you
learned
learned
something in
something
our
on our
discussion.
discussion. Thank
Thank
you
you for
for listening.
listening.